This is Mr. Royce of Royce Media coming at you guys with another video. And in this video, I want to talk about the disingenuousness of the D-boy turned activist. I grew up in Chicago in the late 80s, early 90s, and I saw my share of D-boys. Grew up with a lot of guys that they got into the game and ended up losing their lives to the game, either through homicide or through prison sentences. But I'm very familiar with the D boy turned activist. Some of those guys that survived and have been getting out of prison within the last few years, and now all become social justice activists, pro-black activists, so forth and so on. And while I applaud some of them who legitimately trying to turn their lives around and trying to do something to better the neighborhoods they destroyed. My problem is that for the ones I know, back in the day, I was telling them something was wrong with their choices, especially the ones I was real tight with. The guys that I knew growing up. I told them, hey, man, this ain't the thing to do. You know, um, a lot of these guys made a lot of money back in the day, and what's funny is that they spent all that money on females, foreign cars, uh, Italian gold, um, stuff like that. It's stuff that really, other than um, the females in the neighborhood, none of that money really went back to the neighborhood. As I mentioned in a video before, it's not like these D-boy activists set up a scholarship fund for Smart, Steve, or you know, other people who had the potential to get out of the neighborhood who were males. It's not like these D boys and Pookies and Ray Rays set up a scholarship fund or contributed something to these guys' um, uh, journey through the educational system or through the military or trade schools. These guys didn't go, these D boys and these gang members didn't buy up the blocks that they served dope on. They didn't buy the trap houses that they served dope out of. They didn't do anything but occasionally give out some turkeys on holidays. Meanwhile, they got people hooked on drugs, including their own family members. And now these guys want to come back and tell people like me who will have nothing to do with the community that we need to bring our money and intelligence and resources back. I'm like, wrong answer, man. I'm not bringing Jack back. I left the community for a reason, you know. Um, so the thing is that the information was out back in the 90s, in the late 80s. It's not like you didn't have uh, the Nation of Islam, other different groups that was dealing with trying to, in their own way, get black people to be better um, out. You had like I said, you had the Nation of Islam, you had the Hebrew Israelites, you had the Islamic Hebrews, you had the Five Percenters, you had all these different groups that, in their own way, was trying to wake people up. And it took a lot of these guys, these D boys, gang members, a prison sentence to figure out that what those guys did, there may have been some helpful things those guys were trying to teach. Really, with a lot of these um, D-boy activists and And convict turned pro blacks that I see now, to me, I see the hustle in it. I see the hustle in it all day. You know, I'm not a spring chicken, and I've been around and I've seen it, all of this stuff. You know, so I see the hustle. To me, they're no different than a pastor who, a former pimp turned pastor. So, you know, I look at him like, yeah, okay, all right, okay. You know, meanwhile, you had someone like myself who was exposed to the exact same information, stuff as them, and was like, yeah, I don't want to do this to the people around me. I wouldn't want to poison people and and put their kids in a bad situation, which is what I saw drug dealing as. I saw the effects and was like, no thanks. You know, I had no desire to do that. I think that was where the roots of my frustration with the community back in the day, so-called community, was that I saw the D boys and the gang chiefs and stuff. I saw them being celebrated, you know, and I saw also the guys such as myself who were trying to be something more than what I saw in the neighborhood and was trying to get out. You know, um, I wasn't exactly a educated lane. Um, the only reason I wasn't is I had hands. I've always had hands. And you know, I've always been able to kind of move around in the streets. I mean, I've got jumped a few times back in the day and stuff. It is what it is. That's gonna happen growing up in the streets. But I never got involved with the gang life, and that's where my conflict with a lot of these guys uh, was. It was like they had the mentality of you gonna get down or you gonna lay down. And my thing was, is you gonna lay down first, especially if it's just me and you know. But I digress. Anyway, um, this D boy turn activist thing, to me, it's no different than the pimp turn pastor hustle. I pretty much see the same thing, and ultimately is to finesse people and to get into somebody's pockets behind their frustrations and emotions. You know, so I mean, you have a few of those guys that are actually sincere, in their efforts, but most of it is it's a hustle. It's the church game. You know. Anyway, this is Mr. Royce Media. Share, like, and subscribe. You know, and I'm out.